Hello, my name is Miss Allison, and I will be reading to you from an Alan Gratz Ground Zero, a novel of 9/11. The Apache. Rashmina's eyes flashed back and forth between Passoon and the Taliban fighters on the ridge. The Taliban had to have seen her brother waving his arms, but they weren't going to come down to the mountain to him as he was going to have to go to them. Passoon put his hands down and started to climb. Passoon, stop! Rashmina screamed. But he was too far away to hear her. Rashmina flew down the hill after him. She was going much faster than he was now, but she still had to cross a ravine at the bottom of the valley and climb the hill on the other side. She was never going to make it. Passoon, you idiot! Rashmina yelled. Come back! Passoon ignored her. Up and up he climbed, getting closer to the Taliban. Rashmina stumbled into the bottom of the ravine. Her brother was already more than halfway up the next hill. He was going to get the Taliban before Rashmina could catch him. Passoon, she cried. Please don't go. She looked around desperately, thinking of anything that she could do, anything she could say to keep her twin brother from joining the Taliban. Whomp, 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 whomp. Rashmina felt the vibrations before she heard it. An Apache. The American helicopter thundered over the hill and down the ravine like an angry animal, swooping so slow it blew dirt and rocks up into great brown swirls. To Rashmina, it looked like a giant metal grasshopper, green all over, with big nose, long tail, and folded up wings. Only underneath these wings were missiles and machine guns. Was the helicopter out looking for missing soldiers? Pshoom! A rocket from one of the Apache's wings straight toward the ridge where the Taliban had been standing moments before, and boom! The hill side exploded. Boulders broke loose from the mountaintop and tumbled down toward Rashmina. She dove behind a rock and cowered in the landslide, rumbled by, pelting her with dirt and bouncing stones. The Americans weren't looking for their soldiers. They were looking for revenge. Rashmina heard the Taliban firing back. Their Soviet air rifles clanged to their metal poles on the corrugated roof. Ding, 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 ding. As the avalanche started, Rashmina peeked out from behind her cover. Had her brother been hit by the blast? She couldn't see him anywhere. Passoon, that idiot. If he wasn't dead, Rashmina was going to kill him. Rashmina watched the Apache spin its guns, never leaving their target at the top of the ridge. White hot streaks, as bright as the sun, shot out from underneath it like fireworks. Tracer bullets. They were so fast, Rashmina saw them before she heard them. Tat, 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 tat. The helicopter descended, getting closer and closer, and the sound of the bullets hitting the hillside got louder and louder. Rashmina put her hands over her ears and winced. She had to know if Passoon was all right. If he was going to be hurt or cowardly worm, she had to help him. Rashmina stood in the crotch and ran up the hill. Hands still covered her ears. The Apache hadn't seen her. It kept pounding the ridge where the Taliban had been. Tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat. Rashmina kept her head down, watching her feet on the broken ground as she ran. In a few breathless heartbeats, she was at the last place she had seen her twin brother. Fresh rocks from the explosion littered the ground. Passoon, she cried. Passoon, where are you? His hand reached out from behind the rock and yanked her to the ground. "Get down, you idiot," her brother yelled. "Passoon," Rashmina cried. Her brother was alive. Rashmina threw her arms around him, then socked him in the arm. "Ow!" Passoon cried. "I can't believe you really left to join the Taliban. You have water for brains." Bullets struck the hillside right above them, and Rashmina and her brother flinched. "We have to get out of here," Rashmina cried. The Apache stopped shooting in their direction and roared off over the top hill in pursuit of the Taliban. Passoon took Rashmina's hand and pulled her to her feet. "Come on, let's go," he said. The way back down to the ravine was too wide open, for the helicopter came back in. It would seem it was too clear that the Americans were in a shoot first and ask questions later kind of mood. Rashmina and her brother ran sideways along the hillside instead, hand in hand, away from the battle. "You're not supposed to be here," Passoon cried. "Neither are you," Rashmina yelled back. Rashmina's feet slipped and twisted on the uneven ground, and she threw a twinge in her ankle. Her lungs burned, and her heart felt like she was going to burst, but she kept moving. They couldn't stop. Rashmina glanced back over her shoulder and looked at the helicopter. There was still no sign of it. "Rashmina, watch out!" Passoon cried, and she faced toward again. Open sky stretched out from Rashmina, and her heart dropped to her stomach. A cliff! Rashmina tried to turn, dig her feet into, and stop, and she fell down hard on her backside and lost Passoon's hand. She was running too fast, and her momentum carried her down toward the edge of the cliff. She twisted onto her belly to crawl to the ground, but with a struggle scream, she felt her feet and then her legs slip over the side. She was going over the cliffside. "Rashmina!" Passoon cried. He threw himself face first onto the ground and grabbed her hands, halting her before she slid entirely over the edge. Only Rashmina's head and shoulders and arms were still on the solid ground. The rest of her twisted frantically in the wind. Rashmina puffed off and panted, swallowed and screamed. She kicked and turned her feet, but there was nothing under her, only air. In her mind's eye, she saw herself losing her grip, tumbling, falling. She had had the nightmare before, tossing and turning under the blanket as she fell through the sky, trying to grab and hold something, anything, as the ground rushed up to her, jerking awake in a sweat right before she hit. Only this time, waking up would not save her. "Passoon!" Rashmina cried. "Hold on! Don't let me fall!" Her twin brother grunted and strained, trying to pull her back up. His eyes were wild with panic. Sweat popped out on like beads on his forehead. Rashmina kept kicking her legs, trying to find something to stand on, to push herself back up. Then she felt it. Not a rock or a ledge below her, but a vibration. It started in the pit of her stomach and moved up her body. The hair on Rashmina's arm stood on end, and then, like an eagle riding a terminal, something big and powerful rose up behind her. Whomp, 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 whomp. The American helicopter. The Apache hovered in the air right behind her, so close that when Rashmina turned her head, she could see the pilot through the windshield. A huge machine gun, bigger than Rashmina herself, hung from the bottom of a helicopter. Whenever the pilot gaze went, the machine gun followed, as though one was tied to the other. The pilot looked left, then right, and the pilot looked at Rashmina, still hanging over the cliff, and the machine gun aimed directly at her.